Let me ask you something. Do you really believe you're in complete control? That the person steering your ship is, you? Well, what if I told you that feeling of control is pretty much an illusion?
Yeah, I know. It's a confronting thought, isn't it? We all want to be the captain of our own ship. But deep down, beneath the surface, there are these incredibly powerful currents at play, and they're directing our course in ways we barely even notice.
See, your brain isn't just some loyal servant waiting for orders. This quote absolutely nails it. It's a master puppeteer. And figuring out how it's pulling all those strings, well, that's the real first step toward any kind of genuine self-mastery.
To get there, though, we first have to dismantle a really common but deeply flawed way of thinking about our inner world. Let's call it the impulse illusion.
We all know this story, right? The little angel on one shoulder, the demon on the other. It's this constant battle between our rational mind and our so-called primitive impulses. But here's a crazy thought. What if this isn't a battle you're supposed to win? What if the whole way you're framing the fight is just wrong?
So instead of a constant war, instead of suppression, there's a much more sophisticated model. It's called integration. And this isn't about crushing your impulses. It's about organizing them.
Just look at the contrast here. Inhibition is crude. It's just brute force, just screaming no at a part of yourself. And honestly, it's exhausting. It's an unsustainable conflict. Integration, though, is much smarter. It's about taking that raw energy and actually channeling it, giving it a productive job. That's how you create a harmony that actually lasts.
And this is where the thinking really shifts in a brilliant way. That aggressive impulse you feel, it isn't just a blind force. It's much better to think of it as a sub-personality, a little character inside of you with its own way of seeing the world, its own feelings, and its own very narrow goal. So you don't just have impulses, you have a whole committee of competing, single-minded personalities inside your head.
Here's a perfect, real-world example of how this works. You have a willful, aggressive kid who's causing a lot of trouble. The old model, inhibition, just says to punish him until he stops. But the integration model does something far more clever. It channels that assertive energy. It gives that aggression subpersonality a new, more productive job to do. And the outcome? The aggression doesn't just disappear, it gets transformed into the disciplined drive of a successful athlete. He becomes a master of his aggression, not a victim of it.
Now, this idea of integrating our inner drives, it isn't new at all. In fact, if you look back, our ancestors had a powerful, mythological way of understanding this exact same thing. Think of it this way. What our ancestors called gods, we might call subpersonalities. Mars wasn't just some abstract concept of anger, he was the spirit of rage. Venus was the spirit of sexuality. By personifying these powerful inner forces, they understood a crucial truth. You don't suppress a god, you have to respect it, negotiate with it, and find a way to work with it.
And what's amazing is how this mirrors our own psychological growth. The historical shift from polytheism, a whole pantheon of warring gods, to monotheism, a single harmonizing principle, is a perfect metaphor for maturation. We go from being like a toddler, ruled by a chaos of competing wants, to an integrated adult with a unified self that can direct all those inner forces toward a single higher goal.
But what happens in our modern world when this integration process fails? What happens when one of those gods, one of those subpersonalities, completely hijacks the entire system?
This is where we have to talk about something called a super stimulus. Our world is filled with them. Things like junk food, internet pornography, endless social media feeds. These are all exaggerated signals. They're totally new in an evolutionary sense, and they target our ancient brain circuits with an intensity they were never, ever designed to handle. And that's what creates these powerful compulsive loops.
And right here, you can see exactly what that looks like. On the left, a balanced, integrated life. Different parts have their place, but on the right, that's a brain that's been hijacked. One subpersonality, the addict, has grown so monstrously large that it's starving all the others. Family, work, health, they all just shrink into nothing.
And that's the terrible trap. These loops are dead ends. They feel like you're on a quest, like you're chasing something important. But they're just false adventures. They lead to zero growth and no real satisfaction, just a repeating cycle that consumes your entire life.
So, if those are the false adventures, what's the real one? What is the ultimate antidote to all this internal chaos, to the trap of the superstimulus? Well, the answer might actually surprise you.
Let that sink in for a moment.
We're taught to think of adventure as escaping responsibility, running away from it all. But the most profound idea here is that true, meaningful adventure is actually found when you voluntarily adopt responsibility.
This is the promise of the real adventure, the one you read about in ancient stories like Abraham's. When you voluntarily take on a meaningful burden, raising a family, building a business, mastering a craft, you start a journey where your life actually becomes a blessing to yourself. You earn genuine respect. You build something that lasts. You bring value to the world around you.
See, this isn't a chore to be avoided. It's the most fundamental drive we have. The instinct to venture out, to face down challenges, and to create order and value out of chaos. That is the ultimate human adventure. That's the thing that integrates all those subpersonalities and points them all toward the highest possible good.
So I'll just leave you with this. Forget the false adventures that lead nowhere. Look around your life, at your family, your community, your own potential. What meaningful burden is just sitting there, waiting for you to pick it up? Because that responsibility, that might just be the greatest adventure you'll ever have.